Right now, we're joined, as we always are at this time, by our legal analyst, Hans von Spakovsky. He is Senior Legal Fellow at the Advancing American Freedom Group over there. Hey, Hans, happy Independence Day week. It's going to be quite a great week this in the nation. Are you staying here, and are you going to brave the heat?
Oh, I'm staying in D.C. I wouldn't miss this for anything. I mean, the town is putting on its best like we've never seen before, and I've been here a long time, including, a fireworks show that's supposed to be the biggest they've ever staged in the nation's capital. So I'm not going to miss that.
We're still torn as to where to go to see those fireworks because it's going to be kind of a mess downtown around the mall. The good thing about such a big spectacular is you can see it from a lot of different places. Have you figured out your spot yet, Hans, or do you want to tell me offline so we can secretly meet?
No, I have to tell you offline. Otherwise, everybody else will be there, too.
All right. Text me on that one, pal. All right, listen, we got anything that you want to reflect on in last week's decisions? They all sort of came down the way you predicted. It seems like the president's ability to revoke TPS because temporary means temporary. We had your friend Cully Stimson on, actually, to reflect on that. And I didn't know that the actual statute said no judicial review. So it shouldn't have even gotten this far, but... anything else we're missing about any of that? I'm told Congress can extend TPS, but can they do that without the president?
Oh, yeah, because the whole TPS doctrine was created by Congress through a statute. No, the president had 3 terrific wins on immigration cases. That wasn't the only one, but there were several others, all of which enforced his ability to secure the border. What's shocking about those immigration decisions, all of them were just straight out readings of the applicable immigration statute. And yet we had the 3 liberals consistently voting against the president on every one of those. And I should say, President Trump won, but actually the American people won.
Yeah.
Because like I said, what they did is simply uphold the ability to enforce our immigration laws. So it was a great set of victories by the president.
Amen to that. Hans, let's look at, I guess, today and tomorrow are the last 2 days. They all have to come out in the month of June, so this will be it. Based on last week's decisions, does it inform the other major pending decision having to do with immigration? That's the birthright citizenship. Could you see the same 6-3 coming up with the logic behind that one?
Well, I hope so, but I hope it's not a case of the Chief Justice saying, well, we've given the president those, we're going to rule against him on birthright citizenship. The government had kind of an uphill battle when they did the oral arguments on this. The correct decision, actually upholding the applicable 14th Amendment, would be to say, no, we don't have birthright citizenship in the United States, but I just don't know whether they're going to get there. But remember, that's one of about a dozen cases that they still haven't released the final decisions.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. There's 2 others that are sort of go hand in hand, presidential removal power and the independence of the Federal Reserve, but they both sort of have to do with the president, removing somebody from a body. Do you think that those 2 decisions will sort of be married together in terms of how the justices might come down?
Well, they're slightly different because in the Federal Reserve case, the president said, I've actually got good cause to fire Lisa Cook. The other one, Rebecca Slaughter of the FTC, he just got rid of her without saying that she somehow did something wrong. And that one is all about how much authority does the president have about so-called independent federal agencies, the huge administrative state that has now been causing us problems for so many years. That's a vital case. That is a very important case.
It really is, because that also affects all of these little commissions that are set up to be independent from public. But that's not how our founders wanted it. They're not supposed to be, because then who do they answer to? They answer to no one.
No, that's exactly right. That's what's led to this huge bureaucratic state that's not answerable to voters. Yeah. And that's a real problem for this country.
2 decisions that are sort of in your very narrow wheelhouse that no one else is an expert on like you, Hans, and that has to do with elections. Let's start with the campaign finance. Right. The campaign finance one, it challenges federal limits and the coordination. We've always been told that, yeah, you can have these independent political action committees, but there's a limit to the coordination with the campaigns or with the party. What will this one do, and how do you think it's going to shake down?
Well, the limits on the political parties and how much money they can spend to support their candidates, to me, is just a basic violation of the First Amendment. You know, the whole purpose of political parties is to find, recruit, support their candidates, and yet federal law limits how much they can spend to do that. So that again is an important case, and I'm hoping that the justices rule to get rid of that limit.
Yeah, it's funny that, you know, you interview somebody from the RNC like I do on a regular basis. And you say, hey, we got this big race going on in Virginia. How much is the RNC going to spend to help the candidate? And they say, oh, we don't do that. We can't do that. No, we'll work on the ground game. We'll work on, you know, get out the vote efforts. We'll work on analytics. Like, no, the candidate needs your money. So that will be an important one. And also mail-in ballots, and when you count them, what is election day? What's at play with this decision?
Boy, that could have huge effects. More than half the states now allow ballots to come in after Election Day. That's why we have those huge delays in California, which you're well aware of.
Yes.
And this case is claiming that if you allow ballots to come in after Election Day and still count them, you are violating the 3 statutes that set Election Day as the first Tuesday in November after the first Monday in November for federal elections. And we already had the lower court saying, yeah, that violates the federal law. If the Supreme Court agrees with that, that will knock out all these election delays in states across the country.
Does this mean then states will have to change the methods? Like right now, Florida counts the mail-in ballots ahead of time, so they're the first ones that are reported on Election Day. Many states do the opposite, and that's why California is so late in developing these. Is that what it means, basically? They say, fine, you can keep doing your mail-in ballots, but you got to count them all ahead of time and then release them on Election Day.
No, you don't have to count them ahead of time, but you can't count any ballots that are received after Election Day.
So it has to do with receiving those ballots.
Exactly right, yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, that would be huge because that was the biggest part of the controversy in California this last election, this last go-around. Okay, but we still will have to wait 3 weeks for California to get their act together, and there's probably still shenanigans going on. Finally, the transgender athletes, this is based out of laws in West Virginia and Idaho. It seemed like the arguments on this case, I remember it, were devastating for those who want to blur the lines between male and female.
Yeah, they were. And remember, the Supreme Court has had some very similar decisions in the last 2 years on similar issues in which they ruled in favor of what the states were doing. This particular case was kind of interesting because the West Virginia athlete who sued, this is a guy basically saying he's a girl, part of their arguments in court were that, well, guys really aren't physically somehow much better than women.
Yeah.
And the West Virginia AG just a couple of weeks ago sent a letter to the court to update them and say this particular athlete who filed the lawsuit, he'd been winning all these statewide tournaments.
It's just, it's astounding that we even have to have these discussions at the Supreme Court or even at a dinner table for that matter. In fact, 30 seconds, Hans, but I remember Justice Alito asking the ACLU lawyer, can you define what a woman is? ACLU lawyer said, no, we don't have a definition. And he says, well, how are we supposed to judge on anything regarding discrimination against sex? And there was no answer. The leftists sort of talked them into a corner on this.
Yeah, they have, and we've had judges, unfortunately, basically agreeing with that in some of the lower courts. So this is a really, really important decision to protect girls and women for public safety and for girls who are competing for athletic scholarships for college.
Right. All right, Hans, thank you. Happy Independence Day, and we'll hold our breath at 10 a.m. today for these decisions.